TVOT.
The next session is called ITV Tomorrow, EBIF, tru2way, IPTV, OTT, or Over the Top and Beyond. And this will be led by Leslie Ellis, who, of course, I would assume most of you know, is one of the most honestly respected writers in our industry. People are always calling for her to do this, to do that, and to really inform all of the executives in the industry about how it really works. How rare is it to get a woman who understands the technology in so much depth and with such a great sense of humor? So thank you so much, Leslie, from Who Owns Translation, Please? And I know you'll introduce your panelists. Thanks so much.
All right, good morning, everyone. It's nice to be back here. I want to quickly introduce my panel. To my immediate right, Vibha Rastagi, who is CEO of ITAS. Dave Preisman, who is, I didn't write down your title, from Show, he's like Mr. Interactive TV for Showtime. Malia Flynn, who's VP of Product Development for Canoe Ventures. Don Dolcinos, who's Senior VP of Advanced Platforms and Services for Cable Labs. And David D'Andretti is stuck in traffic and on his way, so we'll just put his soggy self on the end when he gets here. All right, so last May, the iPad had been out for 1 month. And we were sitting here at this conference talking for the first time about pipe cleaning EBIF. So I want to start with just a basic question. What is interactive TV in a world that's now dominated by two-way broadband connections to the internet and all of the devices that connect on those? Anybody?
Since I have the mic, I'll take the response to that. To us, interactive TV is really interactive video. So I think we have to start thinking about it differently. It's interactivity and interactive video. And any video can have interactive content, whether it's built in by the distributors or the advertisers, or it's associated with it as an afterthought. So the experience in itself is interactive. And there are two ways to look at it. One is, do you initiate that interactive experience in the home and then complete that on an IP device? Or do you initiate that experience, whether it's discovery of content on the IP device, and then complete the viewing experience in the home? So these kinds of connections don't inhibit interactivity. In fact, it enhances the ETV and also the ITV experience for the consumer.
I'd probably define it pretty broadly. I think ITV or interactive TV is everything from content navigation and discovery, finding the show that you want to watch, browsing the content that you want to watch, and then actually when you're in the content itself, having an interactive experience. So I think it's all of those.
Turn this on? Okay. No, I agree with both of y'all, obviously. I think ITV is better in a world of broadband, two-way connected devices, because it's no longer siloed to one platform. It's no longer siloed to one device or hampered by those capabilities. So really what we have now is a cross-platform interactive video capability for the consumer, which is a better experience all the way around.
I was thinking, Leslie, when I was coming here about how many panelists we would have and how many people talk over the course of the day. I want to keep it short, so everything I'm going to answer is going to be in 3 words or less. So my answer is loose but tight. Nice. Okay.
What is that referring to?
I thought you'd never ask. When it comes to Tracy's conferences, I have people here who I feel like I'm a disciple of. My gurus some of them are on this panel. Guys like Dale Harristad on the design side, right? Gerard Kunkel. But one of them actually works for me, Frank Sandoval. And so on the org chart, he works for me, but actually it's one of those things where you work for the guy. And he talks about in this world of burgeoning devices that you're trying to reach the customer through, not just a TV, but all the other devices, you want to have a loose coupling. That's guru talk. Is that right, Frank? Loose.
Here comes David.
You need to be able to reach those devices, but you don't want to end-to-end define the whole platform. The way cable historically had to have one wire to one device, and that was it. Now it's a much more loose connection. But you don't want to lose the tightness of the interactivity. And so you start looking at the design. You do a single-screen interactive app like based on EBIF, and it's relatively straightforward. It's all there on the screen. Now you've got multiple devices, but you don't want to lose the engagement of the experience. So keep it tight.
And here comes David D'Andretti. And you're not even soggy. So he drives down from Marin or some beautiful place like that and gets stuck in traffic. Okay, so can I just put you on the spot right now? Because we're kind of to that part of the conversation.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. Say hello. This is David from Comcast.
Hello, everybody.
This is the guy who wrote the EBIF spec.
I'm David Diendradi from Comcast.
Microphone.
Give me a moment to catch my breath.
So, well, let me riff a little bit. So is everybody, we've been talking EBIF left and right since this morning and last year and the year before. Is everybody familiar with what EBIF is and why it's still relevant in this world? 25 million homes with, what is it, 1.6 set-top boxes per home. So you don't really want to strand all that stuff by saying, it's old, it's ugly, let's just look at the new stuff. It's, you know, it's important because of its scale. But the question becomes when, so you think about how the EBIF works, this trigger thing gets inserted into the digital stream and goes through the network to the set-top box, which says, oh, this is something that needs to be rendered on the screen, and puts it up on the screen. It doesn't make that little farting sound, but you know, something happens and you can click on it. So let's move that forward into the IP world, because the other thing that's happening, not just in cable everywhere, is this transition to everything over Internet Protocol-based stuff. So my question, David, is I know that Comcast and other operators are looking at what are the different ways you do this. Where my mind got stuck was, okay, so you have a connected device. You're watching television. Do you have to put a user agent on the connected device in order to read the trigger and render it on the screen, or are there other ways to do it? And
Well, sure.
Go.
Certainly one way to do that would be to implement a user agent natively on the IP device, either in C or Java.
You want me to come back to you after you get
No,
your
that's
breath?
fine. I must be totally out of not fit, and I need to go back to my exercise regimen, obviously. Or have that user agent implemented within sort of the browser-based execution environment, whether HTML, JavaScript, or Flash. That would be one way to put the user agent into the browser or natively integrated into the browser. But then the problem becomes delivering that EBIF content to that device, either via some sort of carousel or via the resources and signaling via manifest files. There are several other options, alternatives that are also being explored. One, obviously, would be to translate the EBIF content into a web application and deliver the web application to the client.
And where would that happen? The transcoding would happen higher up in the network?
It would happen as the content moves through the network, through the distribution network, after being ingested, possibly at some central location.
So this is sort of
for
like the
cable
active
networks.
video approach, where you translate it into, you transcode it in the network. I'm tongue-tied.
Yes. Either you ingest the content for linear broadcast cable or broadcast content, you would ingest it at a central location. Then as it flows through the network, you'd extract the EBIF resources and make them available, translate them, make them available as a web app. There are other alternatives, of course, such as separating out EBIF into its components, the application resources, the signaling, and then you can independently deploy them wherever they best fit or scale the best, so that the resources could be executed somewhere in the cloud, and the signaling get decoded either at the client device or where service selection takes place. Yet another alternative, I
thought there was 3. So you put the user agent in the client device. That means you have to convince the consumer electronics guys to do that.
Yep.
You transcode. Works, but I'm hearing there's some timing issues, like especially in a 30-second spot, you really have 15 seconds to work with it, so you don't want it to look like you don't want it to look broken. And then the third one, put the user agent in the cloud. This is a huge improvement from last year. First of all, iPad was only a month old last year, so. The fact that we're even this far in the conversation is heartening to me.
Yes, and I mean, EBIF content, I think I'm very late, apparently. I
No,
must
really,
have
we-
missed all the general questions.
No, it's just that this is the one that turns me on, so I went right to it as soon as you walked in. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Would you like to make a general answer? But I took you right to the details.
Sure, I mean, just from Comcast's perspective, there are tens of millions of legacy set-tops that support the EBIF platform. By 2012, we expect to see tens of millions of tru2way devices that will support EBIF. And a year or two later, there are probably many tens of millions of IP devices that will support EBIF. And it is our full intent to find a solution for EBIF support on IP devices to support GNU and the content, the cable and network broadcasters that are inserting EBIF into their content.
All right, Don, give us 3 words here.
I have 3. Platforms, not formats. Whoa. So,
Are you going to call me grasshopper now?
if you don't pull some kind of control, and David could go on another 20 minutes, because there are more than 3. I mean, there's like, you could probably think of 10 on the spot, right? But it's, you know, in the service of what? EBIF in the service of what? So you want a solid cable platform that you can have your priorities. If your priority is the largest possible footprint, then you want to think EBIF, but you want the customer or the advertiser or the programmer to think cable. I mean, cable is a platform. This is something Malia kind of, in fact, Malia maybe should talk to that, because that, you know, GNU is the sort of one demand for this common platform. Malia probably could care less about EBIF, right? It's, do I have a common platform that I can put out there that everyone can use?
Sadly, I care way too much about EBIF. No, I think that's exactly the point. I think GNU's vision wasn't about building a national EBIF cable ITV platform. It was really about building a platform to enable advanced TV and advertising services so that buyers and sellers could be connected to a disparate platform, disparate types of inventory, and have the metrics and the reporting and all of that come back consistently. So whether it's EBIF or tru2way or IP devices, that's good for advertisers, good for consumers, and good for GNU, because our role is really in the ecosystem to make that simple for above the line to buy and sell and access.
Okay, one of my questions for you was, from a GNU perspective, is this less about EBIF and more about how to bridge the work you've already done to create one cable industry, not, you know, so that advertisers can buy cable, not New York, San Francisco, Philadelphia. So is that correct? And what is the status of building web service interfaces into the GNU infrastructure? Like when does ITV advertising happen at scale, including networks that aren't owned by cable operators?
Okay, so this is TV of tomorrow, not TV of today panel, right? So the first question that you asked, I think I actually just answered, right? It's EBIF is the starting point, VOD DAI is the starting point, cable is the starting point. So the vision for it is really to extend, to create that national platform. As it relates to web services, that's a really broad term, so I don't know.
That's the tomorrow part.
What's that? Yeah. Well, it depends on what you define as web services, right? So we have web services built today to enable our ITV templates. The expectation is that hopefully we'll be able to commercialize those for non-ITV types of products. We are building web services into the agency systems and things like that so that instead of manual processes that they can actually buy this type of inventory as part of their standard operating, you know, sort of business. And then, you know, ultimately we would like to have web services so that all of our stakeholders can kind of access what they need to access from GNU perspective in terms of trafficking and order management and things like that. So those pieces are all, some of them are built, some of them are designed, and some of them are on the roadmap. Oh, and in terms of scale for beyond cable nets, right, I think, again, it depends on what ITV, how you define ITV.
That's where you get to say, I'm in the engineering department, that's a business decision.
Actually, I'm in product management, so I bridge engineering and the business group. So I think, we want to be able to get ITV out broader than obviously just cable nets. All the broadcast networks have tremendous audience share and things like that. So, obviously we're working with those partners to try to figure out how to do that.
Okay, question for you, Dave Prizeman. And I had asked Dave to put on his programmer ombudsman hat so that he can think like a premium and a basic network, because our basic network guy, NBC, was told he couldn't be here. Okay, I'll just say it. So from a program network's perspective, how do you think through taking the work you've done to interactive enable your content to apply it to newer screens that don't necessarily need a set-top box?
Yeah, so starting with what we're doing at Showtime, we are on TV sets. We're on the Yahoo TV widget platform and a few others. We were one of the first programmers to launch there. I have an app, so if you go to their app area, there's a little dock that comes up and you can click on a Showtime app, and there's all kinds of added value video that we stream directly to the TV set in HD, and it looks beautiful. There is polling and other interactive features. I think the thing that we're most excited about that we're working on internet-connected TVs is a pilot that we announced at CES, again on the Yahoo platform. I think the missing piece on internet-connected TVs has been, it requires a big change in consumer behavior. First, you have to get over the hurdle of the consumer needs to connect their TV set to the internet. The sets from Vizio have like built-in like Wi-Fi, so they're doing better in terms of consumers actually plugging them in. And then the other hurdle is the consumer behavior. You come home, you turn on your cable box, your TV. It could be the remote for your TV's in the drawer. So there's a big change in behavior for the consumer to say, I have all these choices in cable. I'm going to instead use my TV remote and go to their app gallery and then access content. So what we're doing now is it's kind of an over-the-top. I hate to use that phrase because it means something different, but we're using internet-connected TVs to bring ITV to consumers over the top. So the scenario is you're watching a show on Showtime like sports, and a prompt appears on your screen. The prompt's not coming from EBIF. It can. We're doing that as well. But we're actually pushing prompts through the internet on the TV set so the consumer can click and get to the content. So we're bringing the content to the consumer. And I think that's going to be a huge leap, and that's going to really open up the engagement rates on these devices. I think that's going to be a huge thing for that space, and that's brand new. That really hasn't started yet. For the most part, the internet-connected TVs are sort of dumb TVs in terms of they're not content aware. They think that your cable box is just an input one. It doesn't necessarily know what you're watching. So the fact that that's going to start changing and you can do prompts and push content is going to be a big deal. I think all of the programmers are pretty aggressive across the board. If you look at the number of apps that programmers have done on mobile, I mean, they're all in the game. So I think programmers want to reach viewers. And that's going to happen through internet-connected TVs. It's going to happen through the technologies on cable, as long as the barrier for entry and the cost is not so high that it's not just a good business decision.
So are programmers going to end up having to put all of these different things in the feed as it's going out?
Some are in the feed, some are external, some are signaled off of things in the feed. But I think programmers want to reach as many eyeballs as possible, the same way we were talking about before. And at least from our perspective at Showtime, we think we can do great things with the cable technologies and great things with others. It's just about eyeballs. So we might have an EBIF app, which we do for sports, where we can reach a lot more people, and then we'll be pursuing the IP route as well, where it might be a much higher fidelity experience with a greater feature set, but it just won't reach as many people the next couple of years.
Viba's company is in charge of what I call the goo of the back office, making integration work, making things connect to each other. So what
I like that word, goo.
Yeah. So what are you seeing in terms of use cases from your service provider customers as they think through getting interactive stuff to other screens than the TV?
So I'll talk about a couple of use cases.
One where it prompts you, would you like to continue this? But what if you have 10 devices?
So there are technical challenges with that. So let's say there's one where you're watching the Leslie Ellis commercial, and then something pops up on the screen which says, Yeah, which says, would you like to know more about what happened to Leslie's nose? And you can say yes or no. Or there could be a third option, which is what we're working on, which would say, can I send more information to your iPad or your tablet about Leslie's nose? And I would select yes, because I want to know all about that. So that would then pop up on as an application on my tablet device, where I would go click and get more information all about Leslie that I ever wanted to know, because we all do. And anything that she's done, et cetera, et cetera. So now I'm browsing on my second screen or on my other device. And then another use case is around VOD. We've talked a lot about VOD in the previous panel, but with VOD, if as a consumer I'm watching VOD and something pops up on the screen that says, hey, would you like to have a list of all the movies starring Matt Damon? I like him, of course. And you would say yes, no, or send that to my device. And you would say, yeah, send it to my device. Up pops an application on my device, whether it's a tablet or a mobile device. And then I look at the list. I might even order more VOD content for that star, or I might even order a DVD. So there's a revenue generating opportunity. Now, certainly there are challenges with these types of implementations. It's very easy from a consumer perspective, but one of them is, how do you take multiple set-top boxes in the home and relate that to multiple devices, or let's call them users? So that's one challenge. The second one is the user experience. Now I'm used to getting this instantly. I've done something on the TV. Is it on my iPad? Is my iPad doing something else? Is it turned off? When do I see that response? And the third one is, of course, the bandwidth on the upstream. If you're watching a Super Bowl commercial and you have an RFI app, at this point you can spread out the response over time, but if I'm used to seeing this immediately, then that would clog up the upstream path. So those are the kinds of challenges. The other one that we're experiencing is also, and I know this is a long-winded answer, Don, I don't have 3 words, but the other one is also bridging that to the tablet features, the OS features, whether it's the Android or the iOS and others. What kind of features do these tablets have? So what we are doing is we're certainly working to address some of these challenges and providing solutions to some of them. The others, of course, are longer term and have to be addressed on a bigger network, larger scale.
Okay. My mind is stuck on clogging the upstream, because who is the AT&T? Is the AT&T guy still in the room? He was kind of walking through all of the ITV companies past, and ACTV, John Malone's Tax Shelter. And anyway, the one that handled spikes in the upstream was Respond TV. So whoever bought those patents, get busy. Don, bring it home for us on what happens with interactivity. What up with tru2way and over the top in the transition to IPTV, IP video, in 3 words.
That's kind of an abrupt segue. Fine.
So I felt like I was going on a bit.
3 words. I think it's 6 words.
Let me ask you the question as I have it written.
Cable. Go ahead.
Okay. What is tru2way's role in IP video, or whatever we're going to call it, when subscription video services travel via IP signaling instead of MPEG to screens other than a TV connected to a set-top?
Standards reduce costs.
That was 3 words.
So, all right, that was a curveball, because Leslie had another kind of thing in there, which was the history of tru2way and open cable before it. But
Let me ask that one first.
okay.
With the caveat that tru2way, and to some extent OCAP, was a federally mandated bit of innovation, Gary Shapiro, it would appear that you and we have seen this movie before, the movie called Cable at Retail. What's changed, and where are things going from your and Cable Lab's perspectives?
So different 3 words. Cable provides services.
Please go on.
It's kind of complex, I know, but so I lived in, is Gary in the room still, Gary Shapiro? So we lived 10 years ago, a kind of a debate about, should cable be TV ready, or should TVs be cable ready? But there were only 2 kind of camps. I mean, either a TV manufacturer. Are there any TV manufacturers in the room? Anybody works for a device company? Tracy?
We can have our way with them.
Territory. And they had a position, which is we sell TVs. I mean, that's our business. Business model wholly different than cable, which was a service provider and subscription model and a whole different business model. You could not bridge those in that world. Fast forward today, and now it's not just about cable versus TV, it's cable and all these other devices. And it's kind of gone way beyond that initial kind of, the idea that it could even be a well-defined public policy debate, in my view. So, so cable is has moved to, always wanted to provide cable to all the televisions, but now it's like all these other devices as well. So you got to kind of keep the focus is we're service providers. So what's the most economical way for us to do that? And that's where tru2way, I think, comes in as a standard. And increasingly, it's become less about a standard that a TV manufacturer would build into their product, but a middleware standard that cable would build into their own set-tops. And so to the extent you have an end-to-end network, it goes out to the set-top that has a common middleware layer, but now you use that layer as a bridge to those other devices. And so, as David was kind of talking about, ETV, EBIF itself is a plug-in in a way to tru2way. tru2way allows a plug-in model for things like Flash, for other kinds of formats that could be supported. And so once you have that commonality in the industry, then you can start bridging out to those devices in a fairly specific way without having to define each of them and tell them what they have to build. You can reach them a little bit more cleanly.
Did you want to add, David, you said something interesting to me last week, that EBIF is a content format and tru2way is a device format or something. Am I saying it right?
Well, tru2way is a platform, and particularly whether it's a headed or headless kind of platform, which in some cases it might be headless, but as long as there's CA-protected content that is delivered into a gateway in the home, probably tru2way will play a key role in that.
Does everyone know what a headless and headless means?
Well, with the user
Ichabod
interface
Crane,
or
no.
not.
Headless
So-
means no video outputs and no OCAP, no tru2way, right? It means you don't have to put it near the TV, you can put it in the
Yeah,
garage.
you could break headless down to just the UI or the UI and the video. But if you're delivering video to the home via conditional access, then you're likely to deliver that video in some other format, in whatever format it needs to be delivered through the home network, I would imagine.
I feel like I keep derailing people's answers, I'm sorry. All right. Let's see. Internet connected or smart TVs were front and center at this year's Consumer Electronics Show. Projections are that we won't be able to buy a TV set without an internet connection by the end of this year. What does that mean for interactive TV, and how do each of you plan or not plan to participate?
I can answer that. Well, certainly at ITAS, we are already seeing opportunities around that, around building content-related applications that can also interface with connected TVs. Now, the question is, is the connected TV, is the connected TV going to be just that one single screen in the living room where people are watching video, and is the video coming through the cloud, or is it, a big screen that is merely displaying HDMI, wireless HDMI content through your tablet or your device? So that's sort of where we're looking at what's happening next, and we're building solutions around that.
I just think it's a really exciting development in this space. I've been at this conference since the beginning and working in ITV for over 10 years, and I think the rate at which things come to market and the competition is just really being dialed up severely. Different major companies competing on the platform side, all the TV manufacturers in this game. So I just think that whole area is really going to heat up, and you're going to see a lot of activity in terms of app development, creativity, innovation over the next 12 months. I mean, they're adding in June like an app store on the Google TV platform. I mean, think about it. It's the first time ever they're making the TV set is going to be available to third-party developers without having to negotiate and convince and get everyone on board. You can just build an app and develop it. And I think that's going to lead to a lot of new thinking beyond just the folks in this room. It's a really exciting area.
Donna's smirking. Why are
Smirking,
you
I'm
smirking?
just bemused. No. So I'm just going to go back to the three words: cable provides services, right? Well, the flip side is manufacturers sell TVs. An internet-connected TV, what did as a TV manufacturer, one of your driving forces is keep costs down and sell more product. And so you don't want to build the equivalent of a full-blown cable TV set-top into your TV. But you could put an Ethernet port in. And that costs, how much does an Ethernet port cost? Bill of materials, guys, smart guys? A couple cents, you know. But then you're internet enabled. Of course, you have to plug in your cable internet service or, you know, those other guys. But it's that you're done. So, and the example you gave, Dave, was Google TV, which is not a TV manufacturer, right? It's an add-on box. There's a whole ecosystem now of those kinds of boxes. I would come back to my earlier point, is none of them yet are really tightly integrated with the engagement of a TV service. But
Yeah, but
there's smart guys looking at
So
it.
they're being built into the Sony TVs, though. I agree about the standalone boxes, but, you know, that platform is being built into some of the TV sets. Yeah, CE
Do you have you tried Google TV, the
Yeah.
TV?
Yeah, you know,
Don't get me started on this topic.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think that they probably came to market a bit prematurely, but if you look at the way Google does things, they innovate, they put things out there as a beta, and they keep revising, and if you just saw some of the videos that were released last week of where it's going, it's really exciting. So I wouldn't count them out by any stretch of the
It's
imagination.
the worst $600 I ever spent. It's not good as a TV, it's not good as an internet device, but you're right, I bought too soon. I was
Bought
too
too soon.
excited about it. Malia, let's talk about some use cases in connected TVs that Canoe might be looking at. Use cases in advertising on connected devices.
If I ever get invited back to a panel, I'm going to answer in haiku. So that's what yeah, right? So the use cases that Canoe is looking at in connected TVs or alternate
Advertising in
platforms?
general, whatever's closer to your body of work.
I think the primary, obviously, today, Canoe is focused on, you know, single platform, right? Getting that to scale. The next sort of platforms that we have to look at are obviously these broadband devices that are connected to the service provider network. And obviously also different types of formats within digital cable, so on-demand and DVR and things like that. So we enable both for advertising and for programmers these types of advanced services. So I think there's a multitude of use cases, but for us, we have to look at sort of what's the sweet spot between all of those use cases and all of our constituents. And so what that comes down to is us looking at a platform for things like profile management, right? So the TV can do a certain part of profile management and other devices can do a certain part of profile management. And how do we build the platform to connect those two? So as an advertiser, I can actually deliver something on the television and then have it perhaps fulfilled more personally on another device. Transactions, that's another area of sort of cross-platform use cases, from commerce to voting to, you know, polling. Again, the TV is more of a mass experience, and then the, you know, content provider or advertiser at the other end wants to make that more personalized. So that's where sort of the cross-platform experience is. And then just within the digital platform, digital cable platform today, we're in live television, right? EBIF works predominantly in live, and so we're missing a set of usage by not being able to support things in time-shifted mode and in on-demand. So those are the three sort of fundamental areas that we're looking at.
We have about 10 minutes left. I want to leave ample room for your questions. Yes, right there.
In Europe, there is a big hype right now about HBB TV, which combines both the broadcast signaling and the broadband transport. And since this is not mentioned here at all,
What is the acronym?
HBB TV, hybrid broadcast broadband,
APP,
hybrid broadband broadcast.
hybrid broadband broadcast. Thank you, Bill. And so the question is, in Europe, there's a big effort, HPB, where you're combining MPEG and IP signaling.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's a big hype, and it's not mentioned here at all.
That's the first I've heard of it, actually.
Yeah, that's okay. So, is there someone who knows it? I have written a version of it, so I would be very interested if you know what you're thinking about.
Does anyone speak HPP TV? We are such ugly Americans sometimes.
Stump the panel.
I mean, I guess here we talk more about the formats that would need to be supported for video and interactivity, such as Smooth and PIF and HLS and Dash and and transcription or the encryption, link protection, and the DRMs. I'm not sure where that fits in within those three, and also trans-wrapping. So there are these, we talk about it in those terms of delivering content and services to wherever the viewer wishes to view their content.
Yes.
I'm a little confused how quickly we discussed what Sony and Google are doing combined. Now, what's really important if you look at the Sony television is that I'm looking at my cable show, and I can press on the keyboard, the mouse, and the mouse becomes alive. Therefore, that tells me, as a producer, that it's time for me to really look at a new way of creating shows whereby products are completely embedded in the storyline, and the viewer will be able at any time to take their mouse, click on the product, and go and actually get more information. So I don't hear anybody really saying, okay, how do we eliminate all these different menus, these different ways of going about to get information and so on, and really look at where we are going, whereby cable vision really emerged by the major players.
Are you in video production? Is that what you're, okay, so this gentleman is not pleased with my remarks about Sony and Google. I'll tell you later about my experiences, but his question is valid, and it's if you're a person who creates content, how do you, are you asking who wins, or are you asking how do you think through the reduction of clutter? You know, I don't, go ahead, David.
Yeah, I mean, I just think we're in the early days to a certain degree. There's a lot going on now. There's 10 different ways to do that. You can do EBIF, you can do a Yahoo TV widget, you can do something for Google. There's the Toshiba, there's the Samsung platform, there's an LG platform, there's other cable solutions, there's one on Dish, AT&T, Verizon, they all have their own languages. There's a lot of ways to do that. That's part of the problem, and that's what's been holding this back. But I said earlier, I do think the connected TV area is going to ramp up very quickly, and what I was talking about before, which is actually prompting the consumer when they're doing what they want, which is watching TV, and they click one button on the remote, not the mouse, the remote, and boom, they're interacting. That's the sweet spot, and it's about just waiting to see, you know, there's two choices. You can wait and see where things play out, or you can get your feet wet now. I mean, our perspective is we really like to engage and experiment and learn about these platforms at my network. There are others just waiting and see, but I think you can't deny it's happening, and we'll be there in a couple of years.
And you know, the great thing about Tracy's conferences is there's a lot of, there's at least 2 panels this week about that topic, about how to do production. Yes, I believe you were first.
We've had a lot of discussion about the back end and about splitting off the content from the TV to an iPad, say, in your hand. But there hasn't been a lot of discussion about how I interact with the TV. I still find it somewhat painful to navigate my way through the 50 buttons or so on the remote, use the arrow keys and click, click, click. Is there going to be a better way to do this?
Well, that's one of the other big changes from last year to this year is that all these different devices became, you know, you download the app and it can become your remote. And then you can now change the channel by pointing over here rather than pointing right at the TV.
I mean, I would say that the IP devices now certainly have richer formatting and richer navigation and search and discovery capabilities. And the set-top early on was really not, that wasn't the strongest point of the set-top boxes. So to your point, you know, a lot of that is moving away from the traditional watching TV with the remote control to other devices where you can control, you can do the search, the discovery, but ultimately consume the content on your TV. Now, so that's one. And the other one, I think to your point also, I do feel that the navigation and the search doesn't necessarily have to be in one place, or it doesn't have to be just in one device. It's certainly spread across different devices, where EBIF is allowing accessibility to context-sensitive information on the TV, but you can also consume that, you know, the interaction on other devices. So it's certainly spread across different devices.
I heard that as the same question as you asked earlier about a mouse is a different way to interact, and the whole thing about how the customer engages with the activity, it's about the tightness of the activity to me. Again, no matter what device you use, is it really plugged in, or are you just kind of grafting something on that doesn't fit? So it's a whole mentality there, and I think is there a panel here on two-screen interactivity and tablets? And I think that's someplace where the design guys looking at creatives would actually probably help you there. So my 3 words is remote controls suck.
All right, well, you think about the 3 words to close this panel while we let this gentleman ask the last question.
Well, it's a little bit connected to the earlier question, and that is you guys do amazing websites that support series, especially the major series with budgets. So using Showtime, you have Dexter. With these OTT platforms you're talking about, you have the ability to bring that content onto the same screen, somewhat the same as maybe a little even better than DVD, bonus material, etc. Are you moving towards what, like the BBC did, where a commissioning agent for the content says, here's a new standard we want you to build towards, or is that coming from the marketplace after the fact as a I don't want to miss the boat kind of
No,
scenario?
I think we're very proactive. We launched on Dish in 2003 with a full Showtime branded portal. So I think we're very aggressive. We want to bring that experience to the television set. It's just about this sort of fragmented platform situation in the United States that's really, in my mind, been holding things back. But I think that's really starting to change. But I think our vision is a fully branded interactive service from Showtime on every device.
Okay, before we close this panel, what happens next is a 15-minute break, and then back in this room for Gary Shapiro, who runs the Consumer Electronics Association, quite a character. Don, the 3 words to close this panel are?
Get a coffee.
Now, get coffee now.
2 words.
All right, let's thank this panel.